Welcome to the replay. Welcome, tea family. How are you today? I am looking forward to having this tea time chat with you today. I will, of course, be here and trying to catch comments. So if you see me looking down a little bit, that means I'm trying to catch comments. My handy dandy assistant will be helping. But welcome. Obviously, if you wish to say hello, just put it in the comments. And also, if you have any questions. So last week was our really big questions and answers session, but we also want to make sure that you know that you can ask questions anytime we have one of these time chats. You can also ask questions anytime during the week. Just throw out a message or shoot an email or add a comment to one of these. If you're watching the replay and you were like, oh, you know what? I missed something that Lisa said. Let me watch the replay and let me see if I get it. And then you're like, nope, just go ahead and comment because I will answer that back. So again, welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started. And the first thing I'm going to say is we are going to be dealing with Starlight Pear today. So right there. Starlight Pear is one of our new blends. It was created this year and it is only available for a limited period of time. It is available for the months of January, February, and March. We haven't decided if we're going into April with it with our limited edition on this one or not, but we'll keep you appraised. I think it's going to stop in March because the end of March is also Easter. Can you believe it? Oh my goodness, the end of this week, we're already in February, which is why I'm in Valentine's today. But our Starlight Pear, our Starlight Pear is green tea from Japan. It has freeze-dried apples and freeze-dried pears in it. And we go with freeze-dried for this because apples and pears have so much sugar. We want it to have enough of a stable shelf life that it's not going to go bad anytime soon. And so when you open it up, you're going to get a little aroma, but nothing like what you're going to get when you go ahead and brew the tea. So we are doing Starlight Pear. Note to the handy dandy assistant, we need to update our labels a little bit. I saw something on there, but that's okay. All right. Well, this is a green tea. I like my green teas right around normally 180. This one I want to do like a 175. I just want it a little bit cooler because of the apples and the pears in there. Now they're good to go if you wanted to really boil it. I know some people boil green tea. Typically we don't want to do that. We don't want to have it go quite that high of temperature because it has a tendency to potentially burn the tea. We're going to be talking about that in a future tea time chat. So I'm going to make this one about 175 today as opposed to my normal 180, but either way is fine. Either one is recommended. This is a green tea, so our Starlight Pear can be brewed 3 times. So the first one, because it's a green tea, is going to be you brew for 1 minute. The second time you're going to brew for 2 minutes, and the third time you would brew for 3 minutes. Sometimes when I get to the third brew, I add an extra minute on this one, just because I want to get all the flavor that I possibly can out of here. The other reason why we like to go with freeze-dried fruit in our teas is, first of all, we can freeze dry them ourselves, which means we know that they don't have any kind of citric acid on them. They have nothing like that, no preservatives. It is just the fresh, organic, non-GMO fruit, as well as the fact that freeze drying keeps more of the nutrients, and so that is always a good thing when you're talking about your tea. A lot of people drink teas for health benefits and different things like that, and so we want to make sure that they're getting full nutrients and full capabilities of doing that. And you can't always get that with the dehydrated, so that's why we go with freeze-dried for this. Now, it is a very pretty tea, I think. Let's try it out of the tin first. So we have it in half-ounce tins. You'll notice that the big pieces, yeah, that's kind of hard to see because the apples and pear pieces in here really kind of overshadow size-wise the green tea. So I have some poured out. All right. But there you go. That's, if it will focus. It's the hardest part about these things. Try and tilt it enough so that it focuses, but it doesn't fall off onto the floor. My husband does the vacuuming, and he gets kind of grumpy if he has to constantly vacuum up tea. And then we both get sad because we'd rather drink the tea than vacuum it up. So this is what it looks like. It's really nice. This one, oh, and we are all set. I am using a glass mug today. And my spoon that you'll see a lot. And now, what I will say though, this one has the apples and the pears, because they are freeze dried. They are super, super light and fluffy. So you actually end up, my little basket, we talked about these before, a little bit more than you would. So I do like 1 and like a quarter of these, just because, remember, the perfect amount of tea for a 6 to 8 ounce cup of tea or to water is 2.5 grams. So we want to make sure that we're getting 2.5 grams in here. So now it is very simple. Just simply pour the water over until it comes. I'll see if you can do that. Yeah, see how it's just covering all my ingredients. And we're gonna let that steep, and I'm gonna keep an eye on the clock. And while we do that, again, feel free to say hello, feel free to put any questions in the comments section. If not, I will continue to go on a little bit more about this tea. So we wanted something really light and refreshing, and we had a lot of people that love the pear flavor. But pear, man, when we were creating this blend, we really had a hard time. It was a challenge. We knew we wanted it to be a green tea, and we knew we wanted it to have pear. So those were the only 2 things that we knew for sure. And like so many other times, we think, well, what would go well with that? What would create a great harmony of flavors that would blend well, but you still can taste each individual component, but it still tastes better together? Well, at this point, we were like, well, we tried a few things, and they kept completely overpowering the pear. And then green tea was a lighter flavor as well, so we couldn't be too harsh, because then we're losing the whole reason why we're having it. Now I'm going to take this out. And of course, just like always, put it in my little ramekin, because I have 2 more brews of this, assuming my husband doesn't steal it, which can sometimes happen. We all know that last week we made that wonderful, delicious mocktail together. And yes, well, let me tell you, I had what you saw on live, and I actually had maybe 1, 2 more sips out of it, and then it suddenly disappeared. Like poof, it was magic. Somehow it magically made it into his tummy. I'm not sure how that happened. He said it was magic. He didn't drink it. It was just magically arrived there.
Have your handy dandy assistant guard it.
Yeah, he's thinking I should have my handy dandy assistant guard the teas and mocktails as I make them. I just don't know how that's going to help me when it seems like he's the one that drinks them all. But, we'll see what happens. But anyway, this kept getting overpowered. And so you couldn't get those flavors. And it was really upsetting, because we knew what we wanted to do. We knew what we wanted to create. So we had some apples that we had freeze dried for our appealing tea, which is one of our fall teas. And we're like, well, let's try this. And we were a little concerned when we were creating this that the apple might overpower the pear. But what we did find is, once we hit the right balance, you can get both the green tea and the pear and the apple, and they blend together really, really well. And so we were excited. So that's how this one was created. And that's kind of like some of the balancing and harmonies we had afterwards. This is one technically we created at the end of last year because two of our children were here and they helped taste test this one. So we didn't send it out to our standard taste testers. We just forced two of our three children to become taste testers. Um, Sorry, kids, just part of what happens when you visit mom and dad for Christmas. And, you know, we need you to try new teas. They're not upset at all. They enjoy it. But the thing is when we do testings, we'll have 2, 3, 4, 5 different combinations. Once we know the ingredients we want to use, then we'll play with proportions and different things like that. So literally, we'll brew all the teas. We'll have them all lined up, and then we have to go through and everybody has to try them warm or hot, and then we have to try them cold, and then we have to try them after they've kind of sat there with nothing happening for a little while, and you get to the point where you're like, I like this one or this one, this one, and you kind of go back and we go through a whole bunch, and then we are able to figure out which ones we like best. So that's how this tea was created. The more challenging part is naming everything. As we found out last week, we came up with Earl's Valentine. Actually got a couple of votes. A couple people liked that. They had reached out to me, and so that ended up being the name of our mocktail, which we loved. But it's crazy because you had so many great ideas, and you could see you want to encompass so many different things, and names can be a challenge. Names can definitely be a challenge. So while I'm enjoying this, I get the light pear in there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you a sneak preview. So next Friday on February 2nd, we are having a Facebook Live tea party show. And each week, those of you that join me for the tea time chat get to see just a little sneak peek of something we're going to have there. So this time, we have a little sneak peek of this box. It's a super cute box. Well, let's look inside. I'm not going to tell you all the details on this one. We're just going to do a sneak peek. Maybe like that. So what I see are 2 deluxe tins with tea. And so that's what this is going to have. I will tell you what one of them is. I won't tell you what the other one is, but this one is going to be our Maiden's Blush, which is a Rooibos rose petal tea. The rose petals really don't get super flowery. What they do is they balance the Rooibos in a way so that it's not as pungent, I guess is the best word for it, and just kind of blends it out, makes a really smooth flavor. Really easy. It's also caffeine free, which I know a lot of people like, but this is one of the things that will be available next week, and we're going to go into all the details, but I wanted to just give you just a tiny little sneak peek of it. All right, now we are really today, one of the other things that we're doing is we're talking about pairing. So what do you pair each tea with? And each tea is unique. We have several green teas, and I would pair them with different foods and fruits. So I talked about this a little bit when I did the real series on our holiday cookies with tea and which cookies I would pair with which tea. But I want to get in depth because, you know, everybody thinks about, well, what wine should I have with this meal? Or what beer pairs really well with this meal? And those things are more common, but I would urge you, end of the day, people, the mouth does not work anymore, to consider what you pair your tea with. So some teas really will bring out the flavors of certain items. I talked to you when I was talking about Winter's Kiss, that one really brings out kind of fruity flavors in anything you have. And so I had cereals in the past where I would have that, it's like a bran flake with a red berry in there, and I had with the strawberries was the red berry in there. And when I had the green and berry tea with it, it brought so many more flavors and well-rounded flavors to both the tea and the cereal as I was enjoying my breakfast. So, what I would say is that's the kind of thing that we're talking about. Certain foods are really going to bring out better flavors, and the tea will bring out more flavors in the food. So, for this one, I came up with a couple of different scenarios. One, if you are just having a tea time snack, right? You are just wanting a little bit of a break. I would say that you're going to do the typical tea and cookie time, right? Well, I wouldn't pair this with a straight shortbread cookie. I would actually pair the, and that's so hard because I'm talking about pears, the fruit, and I'm talking about pairing, putting things together. Excuse me. I would enjoy the Starlight Pear tea with like an almond biscotti. You could even have the chocolate dipped on the end, but definitely that almond biscotti. You're gonna have that nutty flavor of the almonds, and that's gonna kind of complement some of the sweetness that you're gonna have with the pears and the apples. But you're gonna have enough of the green tea in there and the cookie flavor of the biscotti itself to balance it all out and make a really nice, delightful snack. So that's what I would recommend with this tea if you were just kind of doing a tea and cookie or a snack or things like that. If you were having this with a lunch, we're going to make it a fancy lunch because why not? So one of the things that I would put in there is if you were having like a salad for lunch, I would want to have maybe some goat cheese with that and do like a honey balsamic dressing. You're going to have enough of the bite because goat cheese has a little bit more of a flavor than some of a traditional cow cheeses do. And you could also do like a blue cheese or something on that idea. Some cheeses that have just a little bit more bite, not the spice ones so much, but the ones that have a little bit more. And pair that on your salad with the honey and the balsamic is going to add the sweetness. That's going to balance really, really well with this tea as well. Now, on that line, if you were having something savory, let's say you were having an afternoon tea, and you were going to have a savory. So an afternoon tea has, a lot of times they have the sandwiches, which are savories, or you could have a savory pastry type of idea. And then they have the next layer up. If you think of it as the tiered trays, the three tiers, that's where the middle one is where you'll have all your scones, your delicious scones, with and the clotted cream and jams or jellies or preserves or things like that. And then on the top, you have your little one bite dessert chocolate types of things. But on that bottom, if you were doing, say, a savory tart, I would recommend like a a walnut and blue cheese, or even a walnut and very sharp Swiss. And it's kind of funny. I'm a cheddar girl. Like cheddar cheese is my go-to, but I'm not a huge blue cheese person. But you're gonna want a little bit more of that bite of it. We have recently started enjoying a Robusto cheese that has a bite of Swiss and it has a bite of, I want to say it's a Parmesan. That would even be really good with the walnut tart. Um, it's also really good because if you ate that, if you had finger sandwiches, we're going to say it at afternoon tea or something like that, eat the tart last because it's also going to help serve to kind of cleanse the palate, but it's going to have a wonderful, incredible, complex flavor to it. So that's what I would recommend for that. Now, if you were going with a main dish and you were going to have tea with dinner, we shall say, I would go with some ginger spiced chicken skewer kebabs. Skewers, kebabs, however you want to do that. But the ginger chicken, that's, I don't want to put that. That the bite of the ginger versus the sweetness of the pears meets the green tea and the apple, and it's just going to make for a really well balanced food, and you will notice each of the flavors more by doing it this way. So that's what I would recommend for like a main dish. Now, if we're going really out there, I'm already stuffed after just the salad. But if we had been even maybe doing this in courses and having a really fancy Valentine meal, you gotta have dessert, right? And not everybody likes chocolate. I know 99% of the world's population loves chocolate, but I do know some people that are either allergic to chocolate or who don't care for it. This is where you're going to get one of my favorite desserts. I don't indulge very often, but I would pair this tea, the Starlight Pear tea, with like a lemon pound cake. And a lemon pound cake that's not super, super sweet. So almost like just one that has a really good lemon flavor that balances the sugar sweetness as well as the bite of the citrus from the lemon. That would be my ideal dessert. The one bite that I would want on the top of that multi-tier tray for tea. My assistant raised his hand. How can I help you?
How about a chocolate covered strawberry?
A chocolate covered strawberry would be good, but better would be the lemon pound cake. The other thing that you could potentially do, because I am thinking in terms of an afternoon tea and like what would you have with this, would be like a lemon rosemary scone. That is again going to have enough of the savory to balance some of the sweetness of the tea, but the green tea is going to bring out like that rosemary and that lemon really well too. So that would be another way to go that you could go for a dessert. Like a lemon rosemary scone with maybe just some clotted cream. And then for those of you that aren't aware, clotted cream is not a sweet whipped cream. It is a clotted cream. It is different, and I highly recommend at some point just one point in your life, invest in getting some authentic Irish clotted cream at one of the specialty stores that you can find it, and just try it once so you can really understand. So when you get to that middle layer of the tier tray and you're eating those scones and things like that, it is not super sweet. We tend to think, oh, clotted cream, well, we'll substitute whipped cream, and that's typically what we do in the U.S. But it's not, the scone is not supposed to be super sweet. The clotted cream is not supposed to be super sweet. The sweetness is really supposed to come from the preserves, the fresh fruit, the jam, etc. And you're only adding just a tiny bit to that. But yeah, a more sweet/savory scone like a lemon rosemary, I would highly recommend to balance off with this, which is so good. Yummy, yummy, yummy. So that's what I would pair. Those are some of the foods that I would pair and why. Again, if you have questions and you wanted to say, well, what if I was having this? And green teas for the most part can pair with a lot of things. Seafood, sushis, different things like that. It's just you don't want to lose kind of your other ingredients and just say, oh, it has green tea in it, I should pair it with whatever I pair green teas. That's why each tea should be a little bit unique, and thinking about how your approach to tea pairing is. Now, I don't see any questions in the chat. I do appreciate that there's a couple of you out there and you're listening intently, and maybe you're a little shy today and you didn't want to come on live. That is completely fine. Next week, I do want to remind you two things. First of all, right here on the page, we have a Facebook event, but it's actually going to be broadcast live on Friday, February 2nd at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that is our Facebook live tea party show, and we are going to be doing that, so I invite you to attend. There will definitely be something special, and some things that will only be offered to people that attend live. Just saying. In addition to that, next Sunday on February 4th, we will be back with our regular tea time chat. We're going to talk a little bit about storing tea and how to handle tea and how long does it last for, but what if it has fruit in it versus not fruit. So those are some of the things that we will be talking about next week. I'm about to say see you next week unless we have any last minute comments or questions. Oh, handy dandy assistant.
Church mouse.
He's too busy listening to the geese flying over our house at this point in time. All right, well, thank you for joining us. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. That being said, I will see you all next week.